Today we are going to start our journey into color theory and understanding how colors interact, how to change colors, and how to utilize colors so that we can make paintings pop or be harmonious and work together. The best tool for this is a color wheel, and this is a commercial color wheel that you can find at most art supply stores that shows the arrangement of the colors, how they interact, and it also helps us explore different tints and shades and different relationships. Today we're going to make our own color wheel and value scale using the colors in our kit. So we're going to go through this. We're going to talk about the different ways that we can organize our colors and the ways that we can modify our values using those. So before we get started with actually mixing the colors and talking about the color wheel, I want to talk about the primary colors, or the colors that cannot be mixed but are used as the ingredients for all the colors on the color wheel. Now, for the sake of this lesson, we're going to be using yellow, red, and blue. But I want to talk to you about one of those things that we kind of push forward, but it's not exactly 100% true. These are not really the primary colors. These are the primary colors that we use in art class because they're simple to remember, and they will mix almost 90% to 95% of colors. But the real primary colors, the ones that printers use and the ones that are generally understood to make the most color mixtures, are actually yellow, which stays the same, magenta, and cyan, or a teal type blue. These will give you more rich mixtures. These will help you mix some of your brighter pastel, almost neon colors. But the colors that we're using today are still pretty universal. But I just wanted to let you know so that in the future you don't think that your art teacher lied to you. These will still work as primaries. They're just not the main printing primaries. And a good way to see where these printing primaries are used is if you take any cereal box or anything and look at the bottom. You can see typically they are using cyan, yellow, and magenta. And sometimes they'll have other specific colors on there. But cyan, magenta, yellow are mostly the printing primaries. For painting, we typically use yellow, red, and blue. As we start to talk about color theory, we want to talk about the three properties of color. And there's three distinct ways to describe a color. First is the hue, or the specific name on the color wheel. So this would be the most basic way of describing a color. This would be the color name that we all know from the color wheel. So if you look at a color, is it blue? Is it yellow? Is it green? Sometimes these colors have more specific names like cobalt blue or Prussian blue. You may have a specific name for it, but the hue is the basic color name. That's going to be the first way we describe it. The second way we're going to describe a color is to the property of value. Value is the lightness or darkness of a color, similar to how we have created value scales of different colors. So you can tint a color down by adding white. That would be a light value. A light blue, a pink is a light version of red. Or it'll be a dark or a shaded version of it, which would be made by adding black or the opposite color. And that would be something like a dark blue, a navy blue. So we're looking at the value. So blue remains constant, but is it a light version of it or is it a dark version of it? And the third quality we want to talk about is saturation, or the purity or intensity of a color. How bright or dull that color is. So if you have your purest version of your color, it's the brightest. It can't get any more blue than that. It's almost over dyed. It almost hurts your eyes, it's so blue. That may be like your pigment or your paint that you use. Usually it starts out as the brightest version it can be. As you mix it, it's going to desaturate. It's going to get a little duller. Is it more of like a brown or a gray blue? Is it not as vibrant? If you think about a pumpkin at the beginning of the season, it's usually its brightest it's going to be. It's this vibrant orange. But as it sits out and as nature takes its course, it tends to get a little bit more brown. So we're not only thinking about the orange, and is it a light or dark orange, but we're thinking about how pure is it? Is it really orange, or is it starting to fade into a brown or a gray? So hue, value, and saturation, the three descriptors or properties of color. So as we work through the three properties of color, we're going to start with hue, and we're going to complete our color wheel by going around. We're going to start with our three primary colors, and as we spoke about this earlier, they're going to be our three painting primaries, blue, red, and yellow. We're going to use those primaries to make a secondary color. Secondary colors are the colors that take one primary, mix it with another, and they produce a secondary color. So one pure color, another pure color makes a color that can only be mixed by adding those two. Our example for this are if we take blue and yellow, we're going to mix green, which happens to be in between those two on the color wheel. After we mix the secondary color, we can get those more refined colors, those tertiary colors, which is our third mix. We get those by mixing one primary color and one secondary color, so we get that third color then. There are 6 tertiary colors, and our example for this is you take blue and you take green, and when you mix them together, you're going to get a blue-green. So you're taking blue and then the green, which is actually a mixture of blue and yellow itself, and you're getting a more blue-green. So 2 parts of blue to 1 part of yellow makes a blue-green. Same with mixing value. You always want to mix your darker color into your lighter color. So mixing blue into yellow will allow it to mix quicker. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice using our 3 primary colors. We're going to create our secondary colors, our 3 secondary colors, orange, purple, and green. And then we're going to get a little bit more advanced and we're going to create all the in-between or tertiary steps between that to get things like red-violet or yellow-orange. Now before we set up our color wheel, I want to point out something because I find that this is very important, and that is what color goes at the top. For the sake of this exercise, I'm going to ask that you put yellow at the top because color itself does have value. If you were to take a color wheel and yellow were at the top and violet at the bottom, and you were to put it in a black and white copier, you would realize that yellow is very close to white in its value, and violet tends to be close to a very dark, almost black color. So we arrange the color wheel so that the lightest values are at the top, the darkest values are at the bottom. This is obviously a statement that's talking about the purest versions of a color. Sometimes there can be a very light violet that is lighter than a dark yellow. So this is the color in its purest mix. So we're going to start today by setting up our color wheel, and we're going to put yellow at the top and violet at the bottom. And in the next portion of this video, I am going to show you what materials you need and how to get your color wheel started.